Um, I think we have seen an improvement, Councillor, in the number of power outages that we get, and we know that the Scroggs Hill, Ocean View, Saddle Hill area is its power supply comes from, I think, an East Torrey station, but that's the main substation that we see a pretty poor service from, to be honest. The number of power poles, hey, look, a direct reference is I contacted the Aurora about a power pole outside my parents' house. Actually, it looked like it was not long from falling over, and the next day, literally, they arrived on the door to say that the following day they were going to fix it, which they did. So, but again, we shouldn't have to be so bold in terms of literally being concerned that a pole's going to fall over before some service is obtained, I think.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your insightful response. Thank you.
Councillor Walker.
Yeah, thanks, Scott, for your submission. My question is far removed from overcoming the transnational problems or fiscal problems presented by COVID-19. The bike pedestrian strip joining Ocean View and Westwood seems really logical. You say with a small budget, we of course get nervous. Any idea what small budget actually means in dollar terms?
No, unfortunately, I can't give you that, Councillor. Literally, it was just a comment, I suppose, that was shared with the community board in a public forum by the previous Richard Saunders, who basically said it's just a slight widening of the shoulder. Literally, there is no shoulder on that particular piece of roadway. So we just asked that there's a shoulder built up. Really, the initial conversations were that it wouldn't be a significant expense to anybody. So, okay,
probably something worth investigating. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. It's something we've asked some feedback from council staff about, but not quite got there.
And finally, Councillor Elder.
Got my mute button sorted. Just on that, you've got the pump track and you're looking at wanting a shared path basically along the road. Do you see any the idea of a sort of integrated cycle strategy for Dunedin so that we can put these on a sort of plan? Do you see a need for something like that?
Oh, absolutely, Councillor, and it is something we've pleaded and asked for multiple annual plan submissions and long-term annual plan submissions. The reality is we've pretty much been told by staff that it's just not going to happen, and that the best we would get was share the road signs. So that's pretty much what we've come to settle ourselves with, to be honest. But there are some parts along our cycleway, along the Southern Scenic Reserve, that literally are not safe, and that's what we're specifically asking for this specific project. If we can just slightly widen that shoulder, I think we can at least do it safely. The reality is we just have to put up with a shared cycleway, shared road. Hey, a longer-term project, we'd love for it to happen. If you can review back all our previous annual plans, long-term annual plan submissions, I'm sure you'll see a strategy to both develop a dedicated cycleway from pretty much Green Island to Torrey Mouth, and then also make a safer cycleway commute area from Fairfield through to Mosgiel via the Morris Rose area. But that's something, again, like I say, we've really worked with staff for a long time about, but we pretty much were told it's just not going to happen. We can't afford it, and the best we can do is put up some share our road signs. So which we've accepted.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it certainly wouldn't happen without advocating for a greater degree of council spending. Mr. Weatherall, thank you for your submission and your presentation. I appreciate it. Mr. Pope is on his way.
Can I jump in, Your Worship?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go for it.
Thank you. Councillors, I just need to remind you that when you sit back, you do need to say that you're doing that, because we can't capture it in the minutes otherwise. So, Councillor Raddick, I know that you sat back, so but you do need to say that out loud, because you can't tell otherwise. And just an update on the live streaming, because this will be relevant. The live streaming isn't working. We've worked out a solution, but that won't take effect until lunchtime. So in the meantime, the media have been offered seats in this meeting. So the ODT and staff have been offered seats within the Zoom environment. They have agreed that they will only report on things that are public, so not on any of the chats or any of the adjournment material, but just be mindful that the media will be with us potentially until 1:30 in this environment.
Yeah, thank you. And just on the question of the minutes, are people leaving and re-entering the meeting being noted by staff on the way through?
They're doing the best they can, but it's very difficult to know if someone is here or not unless we can physically see them. So if it says Sandy Graham just in the black box, we don't know if you're there or not. So we're doing our best. The meeting is also being recorded to a device so that if people want a sound recording of the meeting, that is available. We just have lost the video feed until lunchtime.
Is the media on now?
No, you'll see them when they come in and we will identify them so you know.
All right. So I need to record that I stood aside for Mosgiel. Also, Your Worship, I popped out for a second. I might have to do that every now and then because I've got a sick child. I'm just checking on him, that was all.
That's fine, thank you.
Well, I sat back from Scott's presentation, Saddle Hill Community Board presentation.
And I'll be sitting back from Paul Pope's. Yeah, literally.
So some of us have got less room to move backwards than others. It would seem. Okay, thank you. And apologies, Paul, for my overzealous management of the speaking order. Sorry.
That's perfectly fine, Your Worship. Not a problem.
The next 5 minutes are all yours.
Morena, kia ora koutou, councillors. Yeah, we are in a significantly different world than we were perhaps when I presented this submission in January 2020. In fact, everything's irreparably changed, and with the collapse of the tourism industry, that has been quite serious for the Otago Peninsula and the Dunedin economy. As a community, we are likely to feel the repercussions of this for some time to come. With this in mind, we have quite a high degree of trepidation about the future of our community in terms of business and in terms of the tourism industry. Many in our community will face uncertainty over employment and business viability. And really, it means that a lot of people in the next 12 months are going to face some very difficult decisions about their businesses, about their lives and their futures. Therefore, we feel, I guess, the nicest and kindest way to say this is a bit like what David Longy said. We need a sort of a cup of tea and a lie down for 12 months. And I guess what I'm saying is that things such as the 6.5% rate increase, the 3% increase in fees and charges, and some of those capital projects could well be, or best, for our community, both from a financial, physical and mental situation, be delayed for 12 months. One thing I would say on the list, and if you see in my submission under matters of urgency, items 7 and 8, I have to give credit to Enterprise Dunedin and especially Malcolm Anderson with the work that they're doing in relation to the destination plan and also bringing together representatives of the tourism industry. They've done that well. And I'm very pleased to see that. But like I say, the next 12 months are going to be extremely difficult for many of us here on the peninsula, or many people on the peninsula, especially with the loss of seasonal and long-term jobs. Over the last 12 months, we've worked very hard with our community, identifying priorities and the aspirations of our community. I would give credit to Sue Bidrose and the team just in relationship to the shovel-ready project of Otako Harrington Point section with the continuation of that. So well done to staff for that. And of course, we continue to wish to see the completion of the Peninsula Connection project, which is set aside in the LTP. And of course, we made a fantastic project with that. There are, however, some simple things that the council could achieve for our community, particularly around road safety in McAndrew Bay, Pukahiki and Tomahawk. Tomahawk specifically because they are now in the process of a 50-lot subdivision coming into that area, where the increase in traffic will make a major difference to that particular community. These are relatively simple things to achieve. They're not expensive and they're not difficult or technically as well. Clearly, the situation we're in, COVID-19, obviously we're all looking for shovel-ready projects. I would suggest to you that biodiversity and coastal dune protection and the planting of native trees in our area are actually shovel-ready projects. We could actually prepare our beach and dune systems on the Otago Peninsula, but also across the city for climate change and sea level rise by initiating projects around the revegetation, replanting, and reinventing, I suppose, the access to those particular areas for people and as important places. I've raised before the need for, and I guess for investment in tourism research and certainly a better understanding of the industry and its current economic and environmental effects. And I reiterate that now even more so given the fact of what we see at the moment with the COVID-19. It's pleasing to see that there are some of those things, but we definitely need to invest more in that particular area. The other aspects for us include future-proofing Back Bay roads against climate change. Again, these are shovel-ready projects that should be considered by the council for the improvement of that parts of the community. And we move on to the simple and most probably one of the most talked about things by every community board across the city, and that is the provision of public toilets in places such as McAndrew Bay and of course in Tomahawk, which is something, as I say, that all community boards discuss and raise with councils every year. Simple and other shovel-ready projects that may add both employment and diversity to our community and to ultimately to business. Of course, biodiversity and habitat restoration are critical for the Otago Peninsula from that perspective. As I've mentioned before, yellow-eyed penguins are in crisis, and the more that we can do to improve their lot, the better off we will be, both as people but also in the long term for tourism in our community. Harrington Point gun emplacements is another one. Also the Tomahawk gun emplacements as historic sites. And of course the old chestnut, the Otago Tracks network, which again offers critical opportunities both for community recreation, regional tourism, and later on, of course, for international tourism. Now, I've been warned by my fellow board chairs yesterday that I should cut down my my time and use it wisely. So, look, I'll also just take the opportunity